Welcome, everyone, to the Dr. Blue Duck podcast. And today we have Josh Williams with us. He is a youth pastor. He is a dad. He is a gaming dad. He has his own podcast, and I'm excited to have him on the show. What's up, Josh?
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, man. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, this is a podcast for gaming dads, particularly like Christian gaming dads. And you definitely, as a youth minister, youth pastor, and as a gamer and as dad, you just fit all of those categories. So go ahead, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in Rhode Island. So if you get me talking fast, I have my ARs and you'll hear me say my daughter and I'll park the car in the garage. But spent a long time out there and then met my wife. She was from Florida originally, got married.
Is she a gamer at all?
She was up until the kids. We went through and did a lot of, we were doing the big couch co-op games, and she always seemed to enjoy those. Actually, she played a lot of the point and click like mystery games that they had, and got me kind of hooked on those. And then we have two beautiful girls, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I've been doing youth ministry kind of across the U.S. now for about 16 years or so.
Now you're coming from a different area than me because I have two boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. So maybe I've learned to wrestle a little bit too much, and maybe you've learned to have too many tea parties. I don't know.
I do carry over a little bit of the wrestling. My oldest daughter is she's a little bit rough. And then occasionally we'll get her and it'll be like, Daddy, they're girls. But in the same aspect, I've also had it where I've had to play nail salon and I've walked away. Luckily, they're the easy peel, but I've had my fingernails painted and been beautified a little bit by them as well. So yes, you get the healthy balance there of a little bit of toughness and a little bit of, girliness.
Of course, that's my big fear of ever having a daughter is just getting too rough and then someone being like, dude, what are you doing? She's a little girl. I'm like, sorry. I'm used to boys where you just like, it's like, that's how we say hi in the morning. It's like, hey, son, and it's like, it's
my
just,
daughter has she was watching, I think it was like Home Alone, and there's that whole like scene where I think they get like hit in the crotch or whatever. And so she's now come to realize if I really want to win a fight, I know the secret move to get daddy. So yes, she's my little tough one.
So you lived in LA for a while. Now I'm from California. I'm familiar with the LA area. Spent a lot of time there actually. So tell us about your LA experiences from someone who's from the West Coast.
Yeah, so it definitely was a whole different culture to get used to. I know one of the things that I found, especially working with students, was LA is just very fast paced, but it's also very performance driven. So I know with our students, a lot of the things that I dealt with was more on whether it was parental or just the area that they were in. There was this emphasis on how well you perform. Kids at 8th grade being shopped around to colleges because of their sports and everything like that, because you had to get in early for the best scholarships. And so there were a lot of kids. There was this constant level of performance, and so you had kids that were like burning out in 9th and 10th grade or struggling with depression because they just felt like I just can't match up to my parents' image of me or what my siblings did or all that kind of stuff. And then it's also very arts based too. So I had a lot of students that, they've gone on to do different stuff within, film especially, but then also like gaming design and different things like that. So it definitely was a completely different culture that I was there for about 6.5 years. And so over time you get used to it, but when you first get it, there is a bit of a culture shock, let alone just the time difference shock as well.
Yeah. And just there's so much competition and that's hard. And the high school I went to, I wanted to be on the golf team. I thought, hey, it'd be cool to be a golfer. I could do that in high school. I could golf for the rest of my life. And it was like 44 people were trying out for the team. And the majority of those had private lessons since they were like 5. And it's like, I was not going to be on the golf team. So I went back to playing, rock and roll and playing video games, which was, probably a good decision. I like
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
So yeah, so you're a youth pastor. What churches? what's your experience with that? Is this a new thing to you? Have you been doing it for a while?
So I've been doing it for about 16 years. I had a really great youth pastor that he was in that role for about 25 years. And so there's a lot of students that he had growing up that went on to do a lot of great things, but a lot are also in the ministry. And he kind of, I was very socially awkward, shy. I was a homeschool kid back when it wasn't like a big thing to be
Yeah.
homeschooled. And so he really just helped me not only get out of my shell, but really connect with God. And then when he found those students that really needed some of that, like he saw those leadership potentials, he just kind of poured into that and gave them opportunities and would be like, okay, what do you think we should do here? And so, just because of that just sparked something within me. And so I went to school to be a missionary at first, and then through that, God kind of redirected that focus, especially with giving me a passion for a lot of these young students. And I'm pushing an older age now, so I'm kind of getting to, some people are like, you're still doing youth ministry, but I'm like, it's still something I'm passionate about. I'm coming off of a youth night right now. Our students left about a half hour ago. And we had about 40 to 50 kids, a bunch of them newer ones. And we got to talk about the story of Esther and how God is working in the background even when we don't see, and he has a plan and a purpose for them. And just some of those kids going from rowdy to that teaching time, and you just see it connecting, and God really doing something within them. Like I love the games, I love the excitement, but I love God reaching some of these students that would be unchurched and forgotten about, and just transforming their lives. And I get the pleasure of just being his hands and feet with that.
That's great. And what age do you normally work with?
Typically 6th grade to 12th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's real. I mean, I had a really good youth pastor when I was in high school, and I had like my church friends and I had my school friends. And they all went to, my church friends went to a different school, so they didn't really cross over too well or too much. But it was so neat for me as a young teenager to be able to have and they were mostly Christian friends at school. And then sometimes I just wanted to change. So then I would go do something with my, church friends, and to have 2 different groups. And what was interesting, I went to kind of more of an affluence high school. So those kids kinda had a kind of a pretty, pretty good lifestyle, but my church friends, they were kids from all different parts of town. And I remember kinda seeing the the kids that were my age who did not have the things that I had, and who didn't have the parents I had and didn't have the homes I had. Some that really struggled and didn't even have food during Thanksgiving. And it kind of really opens up my eyes a lot as a teenager to have friends that were real good friends, but in a completely different type of environments that I was being raised up in.
Yeah,
So, man,
absolutely.
it's powerful and it's so great. I mean, and I know you mentioned to me earlier before we started recording that you even had maybe the opportunity to be a senior pastor or a lead pastor,
Yeah.
but you kind of preferred to kind of stay in youth ministry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like that's honorable, and that's neat to be able to know where you're being used and know where your passion is, and know that you're making a difference too. Because I'm involved in church, and you kind of hear maybe the joke, "Oh, you're still in youth ministry, what did you do wrong?" Or and you obviously, don't seem like you did anything wrong, and you have your education, your theological education. And it's like, me being a high school teacher, sometimes I hear that same thing. "Oh, you're still just teaching? Like you never went into admin? What's wrong?" And it's like, well, I feel like God's using me in the classroom. And I'm sure you feel like God's using you in the youth ministry. So it's like, why would we want to go into a different place when God's using us in this place? So this is where we might
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
called to be at this time. And it's like, shoot, I don't care what anyone else says. It's like if God calls me to be in this one classroom for the rest of my life, and that's where I'm going to be the most effective, that's where I'm going to be. And
Yeah.
that is okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those things when, especially when you're in your right wheelhouse, it just makes all the difference. Like, obviously there's possibly more glory with being a lead pastor. There's probably more pay and different things like that. But it's like, I'm where God wants me to be, and I wake up every morning just, passionate about what I'm doing. And then you have those moments where I got to perform one of my former students' weddings out in California. And at the wedding, just getting to see all these students that I had many years ago, all grown up, most of them still walking with God and everything like that. And it just, for me, I was getting all sentimental. The room was getting dry. My eyes were tearing up because I was just like, it's an honor that God would allow me to be just a part of their lives and to share his gospel with them. And I love my family. My family's, it's God family and then the ministry that I do. But, I couldn't see myself doing anything else, especially when God gives you the passion to do it.
And I think something we can maybe take out of this conversation, or our listeners can take out of this conversation, is, yeah, you're a believer, you're a dad, you're a gamer, but maybe God's calling you to be a father figure, not just to your own kids, obviously, but maybe to some other kids as well. Maybe that's through the classroom, maybe that's through, ministry, maybe that's through your church. And there's a lot of kids out there that don't have fathers in their lives. They don't have father figures in their life. And we're able to, and the other gaming dads out there are able to kind of step in and help out in that position. I know one time in one of my high school classrooms, a student came up to me like during, we're all drawing, working on a project. He comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, I was wondering if I could ask you a question." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" And he goes, "I don't have a dad. And I was wondering if, like, I could ask you questions like a high schooler would ask a dad." And I was like, "Sure, man. Yeah, you can do that." And so, yeah, I'm like, "Cool. Okay. Let's see where this goes." I don't know. Maybe this is the bad decision. He's like, "Oh, awesome. Thank you." So he comes like a couple days later and he's like, "Hey, I have a question. Remember our conversation?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "So I'm going to the prom and I don't know, like, what should I wear?" And he goes, "Should I wear like a suit, a tux, or should I go super bright, or should I go kind of like try to blend in?" So I like sit him down. I'm like, "Okay, who are you going with? Is this girl you're really interested in or what?" And, "Oh, yeah, I'm kind of interested in her." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I'm like, "Okay, do you want to be like the character of the dance? You want everyone looking at you, or you just kind of want to hide in the background?" He's like, "Well, for this one, I just kind of want to hide in the background." So he had this little magazine we're flipping through. I'm showing him, what to wear so he doesn't stand out too much, but he's not underdressed. And it was like, it's really cool that we can, help out in those positions. And it's such a blessing too, especially for people like you and me, where that's our vocation in a way, where God's given us a vocation where we can do that. So we don't have to like necessarily go out and search for it. But maybe for the gaming dads that are listening, it's like, yeah, maybe you're a great dad, you're a great husband, you're always there for your kids, but maybe some of these Christian gaming dads watching this can think or be challenged. How can you be there maybe for other kids as well?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I'm sure,
there's so
yeah,
many kids, as you even said, like with your background, there's so many kids that are coming from broken, hurt homes, and they're desperate for attention. They're desperate to be noticed. And the problem is that too many times there's a lot of the bad characters that find them and feed off of that
yeah.
attention that they desire. And so to have, whether it's in the gaming community, whether it's just people that you come across in your workplace or whatever, to have those Christian dads that step up and say, you know what, I'm going to be a father figure. I'm gonna encourage this person. I'm gonna, if I see them do something great, I'm just gonna tell them that I'm proud of that. I mean, you don't know what effect that has on a teenager that comes from a broken home, a teenager that is desperate to hear that. Just having a good role model say that they're proud of them. I mean, it makes
Yeah.
all the difference in the world.
And I'm sure just like when our church and your church and a lot of churches, there's room for volunteers, right?
Yeah. Oh yes. Always.
Yeah, there's room, especially for solid men volunteers. I
Yes.
think there was this guy in my old high school youth group. He was kind of antisocial. He was like an engineer type dad. And when I was in high school, he would come and just volunteer his time. And he didn't really know how to talk to the kids. But he was just there helping out. And one time I got a new pen. I'm a nerd. I'm like all excited about my new pen. I think I got it at the dollar store, but it looks cool. I kept it in my pocket. And he was like, "That's a nice pen." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And he goes, "You want me to pray over it for you?" And I'm like, "What? Pray over my pen? Never heard of that before." So I'm like, "Okay, sure. What the heck? Here you go, awkward guy." So I gave him my pen and he took it and he put it on the desk. I thought he was just gonna be like, "God, make this pen awesome and give it back to me." But he put it on the desk, he put both of his hands on it, and he started praying over not so much the pen, but me. And he started praying that, man, He was like, God, when Terry uses this pen, help him to write words of truth. Help him to write words of encouragements. Give him the words to say to other people, to say, to tell people about you, to encourage, to build up. And I'm like, whoa, this guy's taking it serious.
That's so cool.
And he gave me my pen back, and I'm like, he was praying over at my pen, but he was really praying over me.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that was like his place of ministry. And then I remember getting another pen. Something happened to that one. So I went back to him like, hey, Joe, can you pray for this pen? And he's like, yeah, bring it over here. And I think he started praying over a few other kids' pens too. But it's just like people are needed. So anyway, Josh, let's go back to gaming here. Gaming.
Yes.
You're a gaming dad. Tell us a little bit about your experiences gaming with your kids or just gaming in general.
I mean, I started all the way back with the Atari 2600, where every game was little blocks, and you did like my big games were what is it, like Yar's Revenge, and then I love the original Pitfall ones. But that was my dad. My dad was a big comic book guy. He was a big video game guy, and so I liked X-Men when X-Men wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And he brought me up on a lot of those things. I remember my first Nintendo system and playing that. And I joked around that there was that point where my dad was teaching us how to play these games. And he was just the master. He was amazing at whatever game we got. He could just show us and school us in every way. And then as the systems got a little bit more advanced, you started to see him start falling behind a little bit and a little bit. And it was Super Nintendo. And then Nintendo 64 was the big, he couldn't do 3D. And the 3D just threw him for a loop, and so we took over, and I've been loving games ever since. And then I got to share that with my daughters, especially my oldest. I think one of the first games we got her was like a Paw Patrol game, and it was just left, right, jump, and she struggled with it for the longest time. But she saw Daddy playing games, so she wanted to play her game, and so she did it. She got better, and I've been joking around that I'm hitting that age now where she was playing not too long ago and wanted to play Mario Kart with me, and so I started playing with her, and I'd throw games every once in a while to make her feel good.
Yeah.
And it was one of those games where I was pushing as hard as I could, and she still beat me, and there was this sense of awe, and then also this sense of, oh no, I'm hitting that age. And she has not let me forget that, but it's awesome seeing some of those things that you're passionate about come alive in your kids, and them feeling that same way, them getting excited for a new game. And I know it's silly, but even asking for a game, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like when you see your kid into the same stuff that you're into, there's a sense of joy there. And so we'll sit there and we'll play, the latest one that we were playing was Bluey. And so we were playing Bluey together and got the whole family in on that. And it's just, to me, it's great being able to do that with them, and then seeing them kind of take that and, what you always hope for, even if it's just in the video game world, them doing better than you could ever do.
Yeah. And it's just like, man, I'm a sucker. When my son wants a certain game, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll buy it for him. Now I have to tell my wife I bought it for him, and I just bought him the other game, and it's like my son, he's 5 and he loves Goat Simulator. I don't
Oh,
know if
I
you've
haven't
heard.
played that one.
You're literally a goat that just walks around and does random jobs. It's just crazy random, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of comical, and he was telling me that he wants a Goat Simulator birthday party. I'm like,
Wow.
what are we gonna
Okay.
do? And he's like, well, can you find a goat and bring it in our backyard? And I'm like, son, I don't think everyone else knows Goat Simulator as well as you do. He also loves like Astrobot, the PlayStation Astrobot character,
Yep.
and Minecraft. All his friends at school play Minecraft. So now he's leaning towards wanting a Minecraft birthday party. And that's his birthday is not for a couple months still, but it's something kids plan all year round, what their birthday
Yes.
party is gonna be.
And then there's that
So
awkward thing where when you get a game for you that you're like, maybe it's a little kiddish or whatever, but I'm gonna play this game. I'm gonna like it. And then it's like, I forget one of the most recent ones that I got, and I was like, I'm excited to play this. And it's like one of those one save slot games. And then my daughter started playing it, and then she got way past where I was, and then my whole save slot has been taken over now. And I'm like, I don't want to be at that age where we're having to buy your own video game
yeah,
system, but you stole
yeah,
my game.
yeah. It's like it's getting there. It's getting there, huh?
Yes.
Now you have a podcast too, right, Josh?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it just started in September.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
So being in the ministry for such a long time, I've worked for a lot of different churches, the different denominations, and I've seen kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to especially being on a church staff. And for a long time, I would be at churches that were great, but then they had some of those negative things where I would feel like I was getting beat up all the time. And I just kind of took it as, well, maybe it's just I'm not tough enough and this is how the ministry is. And so for a long time I would just push through and just make excuses for different crazy things, verbal abuse, different levels of manipulation and all that. And I was just like, well, maybe this is just how it is. And what I started noticing as I got older was a lot of these forums, they have different pastors that would start sharing the same experiences. And oftentimes they would be met with negative responses or people just wanting to kind of tear down the church itself. And I'm a big proponent of a good, healthy church. And so I started saying, well, if it's not just me and there's a problem here, what can we do about this problem? And instead of being a voice that just wants to tear everything down, I was like, well, what if we've just kind of gotten away from God's focus of what the church should be? And what if we can kind of get back to the Christ-centered focus of the church and start building our churches and our ministries and our teams a bit healthier? And in the process, what if we also started working on how do we heal from some of these? And so my podcast Beyond the Numbers was kind of born from that. And it was just this idea that people measure health typically by two metrics: is finances and then how many butts are in the seat on a Sunday morning. And those are great, but if those are only metrics, you can have a church that has millions of people and yet no one's being discipled, no one's growing, they're just showing up to a show. And so Beyond the Numbers is all about, let's talk about some of these harder points, let's name them, but not in a way to tear other people down, but like, okay, what are some action steps that we can take to start making these changes within our ministries, within our cultures, within our churches? And it's been really great. It's a huge step for me. I have a bit of a video background, but like actually sitting in front of the camera recording myself is a bit awkward, and learning all the podcast stuff and algorithm stuff. And I'm getting old when it comes to that, but it's been great in the aspect of, the turnout has been pretty good, but it's interesting. You always hope for people to respond, comment, because those push the algorithm. And instead I'll get private messages and like people sending me stuff saying, that was really great, that spoke to me, and everything inside of me wants to go, can you do that on the platform?
Yeah.
And yet I'm like, my whole podcast is about not caring about the brand, but caring about the heart. And so I've gotten lots of different messages and letters from people that probably wouldn't post it, but they're just like, hey, this really spoke to me, or this is something that I was dealing with. And that's been the biggest thing for me. And I've told anyone that I talk to about the podcast, God has me doing it, whether it's for one person or 100 people. It's trying to plant a seed to make something a little bit more Christ-like. And for me, it's been awesome. It's been to a degree, a level of also healing for me, for some of the stuff that I've been through. But then also occasionally I'll interview different pastors that have no platform whatsoever, but are strong in certain strengths, and talking to them and hearing their stories. It's been, for me, I grow through it, and I'm like, man, if we weren't recording this, I would be fine just growing from what God's kind of showing through them. So it's been a really great experience.
So, Josh, just for the gaming dads out there, and I'm sure there's someone who this applies to, they have been burnt at church. And they're like, hey, it's cool if my wife goes to church. It's cool if my kids go to church. It's a good thing. But I don't want to go to church because I've been burnt. The church hurt me before, or someone at church hurt me. So I'm not going to go. What would you say to that gaming dad?
I would say it is very hard to build your walk without a healthy community. I would say it's important to kind of look at some of these churches and try to find one that fits what you're looking for health-wise. I'm not saying like shop around constantly, and if someone says something that aggravates you, just walk away. But there's a level of, as you get to know some of the people there, you can see certain things that make a church healthy. And when you find a good church that has some health behind it, get plugged in. I remember, so I was born with a skin disorder, that I was in the hospital a lot, very painful. And I was part of a small group, and I was never a huge fan of small groups. But my church required me to be at a small group. And during COVID, my youngest daughter was born, and she was born with my same skin disorder, and it broke me. Um, and I did the only thing that I could do, and that was I just reached out to different people, different guys within my small group. Um, and when I tell you that these guys stayed up late on the phone with me, crying with me, praying with me, and these are like men.
Yeah.
And the idea that they would be crying with me on the phone from lack of sleep and just from not understanding, but knowing that God has a plan and purpose, like I don't know how I would have gotten through that without at least a semblance of a good Christian community. And so for those moments, like you need a good Christian community. And yes, it comes with, especially for a church, you're being your most vulnerable at a church, and so that's why sometimes we walk away with the most hurt, because it's not a place that we would expect to get hurt. So while those can happen, it's so important that you find that place, because especially as the dads out there, for a lot of us, like we are the pillars of our family, and whether we're strong Christians or not, a lot of our kids and even our spouses will get an image of who God is, or for me, I pictured who God was through the lens of my dad. And for some people, they'll never have a healthy view of God, or they'll have to do a lot of healing if their dad hasn't been that example of a good fatherly figure. And so I think it's important to find healing from that hurt, to address it, to be able to process those emotions and those hurts that you experienced because they did and they happened, and we need to be able to heal through them. But we can't just shut down every church. And especially some dads have shut down God because of what some of his followers did. And the truth is, if you've been hurt by someone that claimed to be a Christ follower and was doing hurtful things. There's a movie line from some movie, but the person, they apologized and they said, "I'm sorry that I've shown God to be this way to you, because he is so much better than I am." And so no matter what you've been through, God is so much better than those hurts that you've been through. It's important to process those things, but don't give up on God, because God never gives up on you.
Yeah. And it's so true. I mean, if you think about if you were trying to attack a person, and that person was with a bunch of other people, it would not be wise to attack that person with a bunch of other people. But if you could get that person to go alone, then that person is more vulnerable to attack. And I think that's kind of how the enemy thinks about it. And us
Absolutely.
being dads and being spiritual leaders of our household, if he can get us isolated without the support of other Christian men in our life, he's able to attack us. And it's just like, man, we were never. But speaking about youth pastors, my youth pastor, when I was in high school, had this poster, and it was probably about like 25 feet long. I mean, like he went overboard with this. Huge, like 5 feet high, about 20 feet long, and it went all the way across our youth room. And I think he had a point in it, and it stuck with me my whole life. It said, "Don't go it alone." And I like, don't go it alone. And he would teach us like this life is not meant to do alone. And we were designed as people not to be alone. And it's not good for man to be alone, right? It's like we aren't meant to do it alone. And alone, we like, I mean, it's a bad thing if one of us falls and we don't have anyone there to help pick us back up. So I think it is so important, and it is difficult for guys a lot of times to go to church and to be involved in a church. And sometimes they just want to, guys want to just send their wives and send their kids and be like, yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to do, but I'm not going. I know a guy where, Sunday morning's his gaming day. He stays home and games while his family's at church. And it's like, ouch, it's like gaming's great. So I love gaming. I'm a gamer, but that's no, it's like, no.
Yeah.
So what I wanna do, Josh, because we're running out of time here, I wanna go ahead and put your, podcast down below in the description,
Awesome. I
so people
appreciate
can
that.
check it out. I think that would be inspiring to some other people, people involved in ministry and people who are just curious about ministry to
Absolutely.
check out. But it's been a blast having you on.
Yeah.
A
Thank you for having
gaming
me.
dad, a girl dad, a youth pastor, a podcast host, all those things, and all the other things that God's gonna do with you and your ministry in the future to ultimately bring glory to Him.
Absolutely.
That's really exciting, man. So, any last words before we close up this episode?
Man, I would say like part of me wants to end spiritually and then part of me just wants to game talk. I think that's a great point you said about don't go at it alone. And especially for the gaming dads, be that voice of influence. There's so many people trying to influence your kids. Be that godly voice of influence to your kids. And then on the completely non-spiritual side, if you ever get a chance, Star Tropics is the best Nintendo game ever. Just hands down, best game ever. But thank you
Okay.
again so much for having me.
Awesome. Josh Williams, it was a pleasure, man. And for everyone out there, as always, be kind, use your mind, and game on.